Good morning. Welcome to the forecast discussion for February 9th, 2012. We're heading towards the end of the week, and it's going to be a bit quiet heading into Friday, and then we're going to have to watch out for an area of low pressure, which I'll talk about in just a moment. Right now, we have temperatures ranging from the lower 20s over portions of the Hudson River Valley to the lower 30s over southern New Jersey. Now, this is important because we do have some snow on the ground, and with these temperatures around freezing or below freezing, you're going to have to watch out for some black ice, especially in portions where it actually snowed, like in the Philadelphia metropolitan area, much of central and southern New Jersey, and portions of the New York City metropolitan area, like Staten Island, Long Island, especially along the South Shore. There was a little bit of snow, and a little bit of that snow is melting and refreezing, and as a result, we're getting some black ice. The good news is that temperatures will be rising above freezing throughout the entire northern mid-Atlantic, with temperatures ranging from the lower to mid-40s, which basically means all this snow that you're seeing on the ground, all the grand 1 to 2 inches, will be ancient history by this afternoon, as much of it will melt away. In fact, because the snow is a wet type of variety, a lot of that snow is falling off of the trees. So watch out, some of this snow could actually fall in the middle of the road, off of a tree. So just use some caution when driving this morning, as some of this snow will melt off and fall off the trees and create a little bit of a surprise if you're driving and happen to have some snow hit your windshield out of nowhere. So let's take a look at the latest radar, should I say infrared satellite picture, and you can see our storm rapidly exiting out into the Atlantic. Now, notice this pattern. I want you to really keep notice of this. Notice the storm is moving east-northeast. Why is that important? Well, it's basically indicative of the entire pattern as a whole. And this same pattern is going to remain in place moving into the weekend. And what I mean by that is that we're dealing with a progressive pattern in the Atlantic. Storms aren't blocking up and moving to the north or northeast because of a huge ridge in the Atlantic. They're moving to the east-northeast. And that's important because that means that any low pressure system that tries to develop off the east coast has basically no mechanism to slow it down or to force it to move closer to the coast. They develop and exit, and that's exactly what this low pressure did yesterday. It developed, it started to produce a rather healthy precipitation shield along the southern New Jersey and central New Jersey coast, but then it exited right out into the Atlantic. So instead of a significant snow event, it ended up just being 1 to 2 inches. The same type of situation is going to unfold for this weekend, which I'll show in just a moment. Now, for today and for tomorrow, high pressure that is currently over the Mississippi River Valley will shift towards the east coast, producing tranquil weather conditions and temperatures moderating nicely into the mid to upper 40s for this afternoon, and in fact around 50 degrees by tomorrow afternoon. I would not be surprised if portions of southern New Jersey push into the lower 50s for highs. Then it gets interesting. I want to show you the water vapor satellite picture. This is a composite. It takes the western satellite picture and the eastern satellite picture. Now, I want to make this a very important point. First, take a look at this right here. This is the polar jet stream, and what we're seeing developing is a powerful polar vortex around the Hudson Bay that will shift towards portions of northwestern Quebec. Now, this polar vortex is going to keep a very progressive pattern over the Atlantic. Why? Because you can't get anything to develop in the northwestern Atlantic, like a strong upper level low and a strong ridge, because this polar vortex is blocking that development. So you end up with storms diving down through the northern plains, through the Great Lakes, through the northern mid-Atlantic, and then out towards the Atlantic. Nothing to slow down this pattern. But we do have an interesting disturbance entering from the Pacific. Now, this disturbance will basically move through the Pacific Northwest today, dive towards the Mississippi River Valley by tomorrow evening, and then rapidly move towards the East Coast. Now, remember what I said about the Atlantic weather pattern. This disturbance and this disturbance here have a potential to interact in phase and produce a area low pressure off the East Coast and some snow. But because of the progressive pattern in place, you can't get a storm to stall, become a negatively tilted trough, or basically a major winter storm. And I'm going to show this very, very well with the European model guidance right now. But I wanted you to see that this is the actual observations. This isn't model guidance. This is what's in place now, and what would need to change in order for a winter storm to really take hold and a pattern that would support a winter storm to develop is that this polar vortex that is developing right now over the Hudson Bay has to shift towards the northern plains to allow blocking to develop in the northern Atlantic. And that just isn't happening. So let's take a look at the model guidance. Here we are by this evening. You can see our polar vortex really getting itself act together. This is a very impressive, very strong polar vortex. Notice we have a trough developing around the Aleutians and towards the Gulf of Alaska. And this is important because this keeps our pattern progressive. We do have a weak trough along the west coast, and we have one of our storms exiting out into the Atlantic. As we move on to tomorrow, here we are by tomorrow morning, and you can see that our pattern remains rather progressive. Now let me shift one thing here. Okay, so here we are by tomorrow evening. Okay, notice that our polar vortex is setting up around northwestern Quebec. We don't have any blocking in the northern Atlantic. We have our strong disturbance that was our storm yesterday ratcheting up towards the northern Atlantic. But we don't have any blocking in the west. We have a very weak trough. Here's our disturbance diving down into the Mississippi River Valley. This pattern is just not conducive for a winter storm development. Now, the good news is that high pressure will be in control for tomorrow. So again, tranquil yet warmer conditions will be in place. As we move towards Saturday night, you can see why this is not going to be a major winter storm for the northern mid-Atlantic. The polar vortex is in complete control of this pattern. Now, as we head to the west, we have a trough in the Gulf of Alaska. That means that our pattern from the west coast into the plains is progressive. It's moving any disturbance that is in the Mississippi River Valley rapidly to the east. So the timing with the subtropical disturbance and the polar disturbance associated with this polar vortex are not going to be in sync. But more importantly, there is no blocking in the northern Atlantic because of our polar vortex. So as a result, our area of low pressure, yes, it starts to develop, yes, it starts to intensify, but look how far east it is by Saturday night. Now again, let me just backtrack for 1 second. Here we are, Friday night. The pattern in place 24 hours out ahead of the storm, even 12 hours out, should I say. Here's our two disturbances getting ready to interact, but there's nothing to slow down this disturbance. And look how far ahead it is from the polar disturbance. And it's also what's called a positively tilted trough, which means that the orientation is from northeast to southwest. What you want with a major winter storm is the trough being oriented from southeast to northeast to southwest. You want it oriented from southeast to northwest in this direction here. That's a negatively tilted trough. You're not seeing that set up at all, okay? So it's the wrong orientation, it's the wrong pattern. It just isn't going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. But what we will have on Saturday morning is this storm starting to rapidly develop off the coast and along the immediate New Jersey coast and even portions of southeastern Pennsylvania. I would not be surprised to see, well, even the New York City metropolitan area, anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of snow, possibly pushing to 4 inches in some locations. This is going to be a fast-moving disturbance, a fast-moving low-pressure system. So it's going to be mostly on Saturday morning. A quick 1 to 3 inches, possibly 4 inches, and it's out of there by Saturday afternoon because this pattern is way too progressive. Moving forward into Sunday, our polar vortex drops to the south. Our storm blows up in the northern Atlantic. Now this pattern in place, if it was in place and this upper level low was a little bit further east, that is the type of pattern you'd want to see develop for a winter storm. But that's not going to unfold. It's not going to be in place in time. What it will be on Sunday is very cold with temperatures stuck in the mid-30s for highs. So Saturday and Sunday both are very chilly, both are very cold, but really not much in the way of snow, 1 to 3 inches, 4 inches at max. Heading into early next week, our polar vortex starts to lift north, starts to weaken. We start to see a pattern that's starting to unfold that's more progressive in nature. More Pacific disturbances start to invade the United States, and as a result, we start to get a trough in the west, ridge in the east. We start to moderate nicely heading into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, with temperatures in the 40s, possibly pushing into the lower 50s. And, oh, by the way, another threat for showers, maybe some rain and snow showers on Wednesday. But for the most part, this pattern is not supportive for a major winter storm. So that is your forecast discussion for today. Of course, I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. You can follow the latest weather information on nynjpaweather.com and nynjpaweather on Twitter and Facebook. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there.